Hey Parsha people, so we're back with Perek 2 of Shir HaShirim, and we're going to pick up where we left off, right? Just to recap, we're speaking about this discussion between Hashem, the man who's the Dode, and Am Yisrael, the woman, the Raya, and their relationship where they want to be really close to each other, but there's this tension and this distance that exists between them. And Am Yisrael, they're trying to shorten that distance and to close that gap and regain that original love and that original relationship we have. And Perek Bet, we're going to be reading today, is going to be discussing this imagery of Am Yisrael, who is reminiscing about their old-time relationship with Hashem, about the beautiful relationship they have with Hashem. There's going to be a lot of imagery of flowers and trees and different kinds of plants and vegetation and all these positive, springy images to describe the beautiful, lovely relationship that Am Yisrael and Hashem used to have. And at the very end, we're going to have a twist to show why we no longer have that relationship. So we start Perek Bet. Again, you don't have to follow along if you want to follow along. The first pasuk picks up where we left off in the last parak, where Am Yisrael, the woman, is talking to Hashem and says, Ani chavatzalet hasharon, shoshanat amakim. Am Yisrael says, I'm like a rose, Hashem. Look, I'm so beautiful like a rose. You really want me? And Hashem says, yes, I know you're a rose, but you're Shoshana, you're like a rose, bein hachochim, between the thorns, kein rayati bein abanot. Just like a rose is between the thorns, so too you, my beloved, is between all the other girls. And this could either be a positive thing or a negative thing. Right? A rose, by definition, is surrounded by thorns. And it's a beautiful thing that amongst a lot of dangerous, negative thorns, there's able to be such a beautiful, positive rose that stays strong and stays true to its identity despite all the negativity and all the antithetical things that exist around it. So that's a positive thing, but it's also a negative thing, because the point is the rose, by definition, gets influenced by the thorns around it, and it gets poked and prodded. So we're going to come back to this imagery at the end of a beautiful rose existing amongst a lot of not so beautiful thorns. And is this a negative thing or is this a positive thing? So keep that imagery in mind. We're going to come back to that imagery at the end of the parak. But putting aside the discussion of roses, now Am Yisrael spends the rest of the chapter reminiscing about its relationship with Hashem. So starting in Pasuk Gimel through Pasuk Vav, Am Yisrael describes Hashem as this beautiful apple tree and says, Hashem, I go to your apple tree because it's beautiful fruit, and I sit under the shade of your apple tree, and describing how it was so nice for Am Yisrael to spend time with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like the woman really wants to spend time with the man. And Am Yisrael describes all the beautiful fruits and delicacies that Hashem used to give her, even when she was in exile, even when she was distant from Hashem. Hashem would still send her these care packages of these apples and these dainty cakes. That's how the article translates it. Why? Ki cholat ahava ani. And this is like the powerful phrase that Am Yisrael says, because I'm lovesick and I really miss you, Hashem. So when we were together, when we used to be together, we used to be so close, and even when we're far, you still send me these presents and remind me of those times you used to have, just because I'm so lovesick and I'm so desperate to be with you, and I'm lost without your love. The imagery described in Pasuk Vav is Smolo Tachad L'Roshi V'Minot Chabkeni Hashem. Even when times are hard for me and you push me away, still you support me with your left hand, and you hug me with your right hand. It's describing this beautiful imagery of the love and the support that, especially that was there during good times, before Am Yisrael distanced itself from Hashem, but even after Am Yisrael distanced from Hashem, Hashem still totally didn't sever the bonds, and still totally didn't cut the ropes. Hashem still sends those care packages. Hashem still sends those distant hugs and that distant love. And then we get to the chorus. This is the refrain of Shir HaShirim. A version of this pasuk is repeated several times throughout the Sefer. Listen to the words. Am Yisrael says this when Am Yisrael turns to the Benot Yushalayim, to the rest of the world, and tells them the following: Hishpati edchem, I'm going to make you swear, Benot Yushalayim, b'tzvaot v'aliyot asareh. Right. A few different interpretations of what that means, but the point is, I'm going to make you swear, and if you don't accept this oath, you're going to be hefker. You're going to be as lost and powerless as just animals roaming in the field with no protection. But what's this oath that Am Yisrael is making the nations of the world swear to? Im ta'iru v'im ta'oru et ahava at shetachbas. If you awaken the love, if you try to interfere with my love, Hashem has this love with me, and if you try to interfere and get this love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not going to work. Hashem loves me. Hashem tachpatzes me. He desires me. And we're telling the rest of the world that even though it may seem right now that there's this distance, there's this gap between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they shouldn't try to interfere and either from our perspective and convince us that love doesn't exist, or try to swoop in and steal Hashem's love before we could get it back. Because really, even though it looks like it's not there, the rope hasn't been severed. And even when we're in Gullus, even when we're in exile, there's still this relationship. There's this deep true love that exists between us and Hashem. Hashem still loves us. Hashem still gives us these care packages. This is the refrain. This is the whole point of Shir HaShirim. That even though the love doesn't look like it exists right now, this is just temporary. It's just a means to an end. But the end is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the love to get back to the way it was, to close the gap. Hashem is Melech Shalom Lo. Hashem wants that peace to return. So that's why this is the chorus. Okay. Am Yisrael now continues reminiscing and describes in beautiful language. Kol dodi, hine zeba, I hear the voice of my beloved coming. Midaleg al ha'arim, it's skipping over all the mountains. Mikapet al hakfaot, he's jumping over all the valleys. Meaning Hashem is running towards me, and Hashem is trying. He misses me so much. He's desperate. It's Am Yisrael is fantasizing about Hashem ending this exile early, about coming. Rashi explains that Hashem promised the Jewish people, or told the Jewish people they're going to be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, and Hashem couldn't bear the separation, and after 210 years he cut the enslavement early, and he just ran desperate, coming to Am Yisrael and outstretched arms saying, I miss you so much, come back to me. And Am Yisrael is fantasizing of Hashem just returning to her because he misses her so much. Hashem is like this gazelle. He's just running to me so gracefully because he misses me so much. And even if he can't actually come and greet me face on, he's standing behind the wall. He's peeping through the windows. He's looking through the cracks. He wants to be as close as humanly possible, as godly possible, even though he can't actually be there because for some reason there needs to be some distance. Hashem still can't bear the separation. Just like it's hard for us, it's also hard for him, and that's something that's crucial to remember. Where even though this tension still exists, there still is a connection, and there's something that's linking us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and just like the distance has to exist for some reason, but it's hard for us, but the same way it's hard for us, it's also hard for Hashem. That's the imagery we're trying to create in this Perek. The woman in the story, Am Yisrael, continues in Pesukim Yud, Yud Aleph, Yud Bet, Yud Gimel, describing the fact that Hashem is saying, Kumi lach rayati yafati uluki lach. Hashem is saying, oh please, my beloved, I want you to come back to me, and describes all this beautiful imagery of spring, the fig tree sprouting, the sound of the birds in the air, and Hashem is trying to create this perfect, ideal environment, not an environment of darkness, an environment of light, because that's the most conducive environment for us to return to Hashem. This is like when Hashem redeemed us from Egypt. He didn't take us out of Egypt in the winter. He took us out of Egypt in the spring. The point is Hashem is trying to, He wants us to return to Him. We have to do the work on our own, but Hashem is trying to create a conducive environment in which we're much more likely to do tshuva, which we're much more likely to return to Him. Because again, just like it's hard for us to be distant from Hashem, it's also hard for Hashem to be distant from us. Then we have a very powerful pasuk. Yonati b'chagvei hasela, b'seiter hamadrega. Just like a dove, when it's running away from let's say it's being chased by some creature, some animal, it runs into this small crevice in a rock. Now it's trapped in this crevice of a rock and doesn't have anywhere to go. Harini et marayach. Hashem says to the dove, I want to see you. Hashmi'ini et kolech. I want to hear your voice. Ki kolech harev u'marayach navad, because your voice is beautiful. Your voice is so sweet, and your appearance is so beautiful. And the point is, Am Yisrael, even when we're in distressing times, when we're in bad times, when we're in times that aren't so good, those are the times that Hashem wants to hear us. Hashem doesn't just want to hear us in the good times. Hashem wants to hear us collect in the bad times, because those times of vulnerability, those times when you're weak and you're helpless, that's what really creates the true love and the true bond between us. Right? We describe in Pasuk Tetvav in Perek Be, Echzulanu Shualim, there were these foxes that came and chased us. They're either imagery for the Mitzrim or any other enemy that's oppressed us. And Hashem saved us from all the foxes, even the smallest foxes, the smallest enemies Hashem protects us from. Because the point is, when we cry out to Hashem and He hears our vulnerability and our weakness, that is beautiful to Hashem. Because the fact that it's those moments that we're vulnerable, who we choose to call out to, shows these are the people who we really care about. When we're strong, we can call out to anyone when we want. But the people we truly turn to in our darkest moments, that shows that they're the people we really care about. And finally, we end the Perek Tet Zayin, with Pasuk Tet Zayin, the second to last Pasuk, that says, Dodi li v'ani lo, haro eba shoshanim. That I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me. We have this mutuality that exists between us. We constantly do things for each other. I do things for Hashem, Am Yisrael says, and Hashem does things for me. And we both care about each other, and it's hard for both of us. Not just for me, says Am Yisrael, but it's also hard for Hashem when there's this distance between us. And that's by Haro Eba Shoshanim. Hashem takes me in between the thorns. but in between the roses. But this goes back to our original imagery, that roses don't just exist in a vacuum, roses exist amongst thorns. And that means, yes, it's beautiful that roses are able to stay strong and independent and have their own original identity, even if they're surrounded by things that are antithetical to it, even when they're surrounded by thorns. But there's also the downside, is roses are therefore easily able to be influenced by thorns. And that's why we end the Perek with Pasuk Yud Zayin. This mutuality, this beautiful love that exists between me and Hashem, it only exists ad she'yafuach hayom v'nasu hasalim, until the day blows, meaning I sin and I kind of like mess it up, and the shadows, the protection, they go away from me. Yes, it's beautiful that I'm able to exist amongst the thorns and stay true to my identity, but it also means I'm very vulnerable and I'm able to mess up. And yes, Hashem wants me to call out to him in those times, but it also means he's going to take a step back from me and not going to protect me so much, the same way where there's a thorn that's beautiful and you want to go grab the thorn, but you don't necessarily grab it because, there's a rose that's beautiful, you want to go grab the rose, but you don't necessarily want to grab it because it's surrounded by thorns and you're afraid of hurting yourself. That's like the analogy of when we're surrounded by thorns, Hashem isn't necessarily going to be as involved. And that's the problem that we're describing, that the fact that we're able to stay strong amongst things that are different than us is what makes it so beautiful, but also is a downside. And therefore we end Perek Bet with this call to Hashem. Hashem, be like this gazelle that runs to us over all the mountains, that skips over to us, that jumps over all of our problems and just comes back and redeems us and gives us this big hug. Essentially, to summarize this Perek in a nutshell, we're saying that we, Am Yisrael, exist as a beautiful rose. We're a beautiful image. But the problem is we're surrounded by thorns. That's a positive thing because we're able to stay strong, but it also means we're able to be damaged by thorns. And because of some of our mistakes, there has to be some distance and tension between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's really hard for us. But also know that it's really hard for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he gives in and closes that distance a little bit prematurely by redeeming us early, by giving us presents, by giving us hugs and gullus. And we have to recognize that our problems, and when we suffer, it's hard for us, but it's also hard for Hashem. And there may be a reason. And just because Hashem does it for a reason, that doesn't mean he's happy about it. And recognize that when we're suffering and times are hard, Hashem is also suffering. But that vulnerability and that darkness that exists between us, that's sometimes what brings us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu so much closer together. The dark times where we're able to bring the man and the woman so much closer together, and hopefully they're able to bring us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu so much closer together into a relationship that's so much stronger and so much richer. Let's stop, and that this Perek is just a means to an end, and we get to the place past the distance, past the separation, where Hashem does run back to us like a tzvi, a lofer ayalim, with outstretched arms, hugging us, because he's finally able to reunite with us. Okay? Talk to you all tomorrow with Perek Gimel. Bye.